Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Teacher, and I'm the National Specification Manager here at Lightline in Canada. I support primarily our Canadian agent network and specifiers, but I'm happy to hear from our US friends. Hopefully everyone is doing well across the continent. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So today is going to be a primer on how to light a car dealership, and I have to put a disclaimer here. I'm not a lighting designer. I don't profess to do lighting designs for a car dealership, and any serious endeavor that requires considerable knowledge, a professional lighting designer is always recommended. And since we only have 15 minutes, we're going to treat this just as an opportunity to look at what factors are necessary when considering lighting design for a dealership, and when working with specifiers to provide options. Let's get started with a few learning objectives. This is just a brief webinar. There are no CEUs involved. Unfortunately, we will be presenting another CEU-based presentation on Friday, and that may not be this Friday, so I'll let Laura speak to that at the end of this during our Q&A. So our objective today is to identify some of the essential factors that we need to understand and be cognizant of when working around dealership, automotive dealership and lighting designs. We're going to look at a couple of different approaches, talk a little bit about contrast ratios, color rendering index, color temperatures, and how those influence the outcomes in this kind of a project. Areas of consideration are going to include all of the main areas that you think of when you think of what's in a car dealership. So we've got exterior lots and the reception area, the showroom space, that's where the sizzle happens. The workspace is common to most other office requirements, as are the boardrooms. We'll spend a moment or two talking about specifics there. The lounge, the waiting area where clients are waiting for service to be performed or their new vehicle delivery, etc. And the garage and the associated areas within the garage, such as the wash bays. So looking at the exterior lot, we first have to recognize that the reason we light car dealerships in the way we do is to add curb appeal, to attract drive-by customers or walk-by customers to see the dealership and to be enticed to go and see what's there. Usually frontline lighting optics heavily concentrate on the first two rows of cars, as you see in the images below, center, and right. And the main objective of frontline optics, in addition to lighting the vehicles, is to prevent spill light from any of the extraneous properties adjacent to the dealership. Those could be sidewalks in municipal areas, they could be parks, or they could be residential zones. Lighting a building itself, not just the front line to display the vehicles or exhibit the vehicles in an appealing, enticing way at night. Lighting the building also adds to the security of the building itself and possible vandalism or theft of the vehicles themselves. The reception area is the first thing that one sees when you enter a dealership typically, and it should be clearly delineated. The illuminance levels directing you towards the reception area should be double that of the surrounding area, just to give you a strong, welcoming sense of where to go. The lighting in this area should also be viewed from the perspective of the staff that spend their days doing clerical work there and directing customers and staff to various areas of the dealership. So we want to make sure that the lighting is appropriate for their use and doesn't provide any glare. Looking at the image below, you can see that in this particular reception desk situation, the lighting was so bad that they needed to shield it. They needed to shield the receptionist or the staff member from that fixture. And so these are things that need to be or could have been thought of ahead. So the showroom. Obviously, this is a critical area, and here contrast ratios can be as high as 3:1. In fact, they need to be higher, with the concentration of light on the vehicle being 3 times higher than that of the surrounding area. And I think that's well evidenced by the image on the right. They're using high-power track heads above, which is a common approach to areas that need to be reconfigured occasionally. And track heads provide that versatility, but be careful that your track heads aren't individually so powerful that they can result in reflected glare off the vehicle bodies and contours. Better to use more light sources at a lower light output. This will give you more opportunity to angle and direct the light to where it's needed. In the showroom area, the importance of CRI is going to be discussed on the next slide a little more deeply, but the illuminance levels that we want to direct down towards the vehicles, we want roughly 80 to 100 foot candles falling onto that vehicle so that it's well defined and all of the contours are revealed. So continuing in the showroom, our color discussion, here are a couple of examples of how CRI can influence saturation and the fidelity of your object, in this case our vehicle. Looking at the image on the left, 74 CRI LED source, this is very early days of LED, compared to a more contemporary source with a CRI of 93. I believe both sources were 3000 Kelvin, and that's another factor to consider. The warmer the color tones of the vehicles that you're displaying, the warmer your light source selection should be. So for red, brown, tan vehicles in the warm tones, 3000 Kelvin is ideal, whereas for blue cars, green cars, white cars, anything in the cooler tones, 4000 Kelvin is obviously more suitable. Your workspaces have to be treated much like an office. An individual workspace has to provide decent general illumination that is relatively uniform, so that you're not looking from one area of brightly lit surface to another area that is more dimly lit. That type of accommodation can sometimes be disconcerting for some people. Accommodation is just the ability to focus from one area to another that has different levels of illuminance. Glare must also be controlled for the staff member that is at the computer monitor, leading the negotiation, as well as the client. Boardrooms in automotive dealerships are no different than boardrooms in any other type of space. And here there are typically 3 different modes or scenes that one would opt for in a boardroom. One would be your presentation screen, your backlit screen, or your monitor, in which case you want the end wall darkened. Generally a good idea to have some lighting around the perimeter for those in the meeting that are taking notes, either for themselves or for the group. With a whiteboard presentation, the end wall actually needs to be illuminated and washed, as opposed to using perhaps individual sources that have highly concentrated pools of light or spots. So a wall wash fixture here or a track with wall wash optics would be ideal or more suitable. In fact, a recessed light with wall wash optics would be great as well. For the collaboration portion of meetings and events that go on in boardrooms, you want brightly lit surfaces. Your work plane is your table, and that's where you want to put the majority of your light in that mode. For video conferencing, as many of us are doing and discovering that we can do from our own homes, the vertical surfaces have to be more brightly lit as well. And here I didn't actually modify my bullet, but putting more light on the face is what's required for ideal video conferencing illumination. In fact, Deborah Gottesman just did a presentation for how to light an office space, ideal lighting for an office space, and talked very capably about video conferencing requirements for that type of a space. So anyone that is looking for more information, Deborah is a Toronto-based lighting designer, but her webinar is also recorded. Thank you, Deborah. So the customer lounge, this is considered a chill space. This is where your clients are going to go to either squander away the time that it takes to do the service or to wait for their vehicle delivery. And here we want them relaxed and not antsy or fidgety. They may be reading or doing work on their own device. And here we want light levels that are mixed or layered. We want some decent general illumination. But we also want some task illumination for those that are going to read a newspaper or magazine that's often found in these kinds of places. The garage, well, dealerships make a lot of revenue in the garage, and so the work that's performed there is very important and very crucial to our safety. Luminaires in these spaces should be equipped to handle the higher dirt environments. Here we're talking about vapor and water and dust ingress. Your fixtures for these spaces should have an IP rating, ideally IP65 or better. This allows you to wash them or hose them down. We'll focus on a couple spaces within the garage on the next slide. By the way, 50-foot candles is recommended for inspection and maintenance work in a repair facility. So that is the average horizontal luminance to look for. But here's a couple of ideas on delivering light better to these types of environments. So if you look at what a technician does these days, they're looking at computer monitors and devices and analyzer scopes. And so decent lighting is integral to the work that they're doing and very important for their safety and for a better outcome. Wall-mounted lighting can enhance levels on walls and other vertical surfaces. And if you look at the image in the middle here, you'll see that there's additional lighting coming from the ceiling. The wall-mounted lighting at each technician station is supplemental to provide those better verticals. For specific tasks such as under chassis and under hood inspection, there are more customized light sources called trouble lights, and we don't have to worry about lighting some of those spaces. But be aware that all kinds of light sources are available to get into the tight spots that mechanics have to. The wash and prep area is part of the garage, so this is where vehicles are either going to be inspected. And again, you're looking for high levels of illumination. 50-foot candles to 75-foot candles would not be unwarranted, because you may be looking at paint inspection for vehicle delivery, and the smallest details have to be revealed. Fixtures in these kinds of spaces, as long as they're IP rated, IP66, which means that they are completely water and airtight. You can direct high pressure jet on those fixtures without any of the water getting inside or affecting the performance. These are different than wet location fixtures. Wet location typically applies to downlights that are waterproof, if you will, from below. A IP66 rated fixture is waterproof from every single angle. And we happen to have an IP rated fixture in our vapor tight line. It's the enclosed and gasketed EGF2 LED, ideal for these kinds of areas, available in a variety of lumen packages. So in summary, when we look at a project of this scale, let's break it down into the smaller spaces. Let's understand that every space requires a unique approach and a different level of luminance. In fact, the light even needs to be delivered in a different way, in a different orientation or direction in some of these spaces, as discussed. Standard CRI for most of the spaces we discussed is adequate at 80+. But for the showrooms where you do need higher levels of saturation and fidelity, you should be looking at sources that have at least a 90 CRI. And remember the color temperature selection as well. Since we were trying to keep this brief, we're at 15 minutes now, and I think we're ready to take some questions if there are any.